I want to ask these wonderful experts that we have here, what is the relationship between the fact that the federal funds rate has been dropping? On September the 15th, federal funds rate was at 5.25, and then it's dropped all the way to 2% in 9 months, and yet, can you share why, if you're making easier money, is the price of gas? Is there a relation between the two? Mr. Soros?
It's a very, very indirect relation, because the drop in Fed funds, which was reflecting the slowdown in the economy, led to a decline in the value of the dollar, which then reinforced the upward pressure on ours. So that would be the connection. That's an indirect connection.
All right, and that's also then another way of saying that if we want to stop this indirect increased cost of oil as a result of the weakness of the dollar, ultimately we've got to get our economic house in order and balance the budget. All right, Mr. Greenberger, let me ask you, is the Dubai Financial Services Authority, have they ever initiated an enforcement action for manipulation in the commodities markets that they regulate?
In candor, I can't answer that question, but I will tell you, as a member of the Worldwide Regulator Conference, the fact that Dubai regulators would be deemed comparable to the United States is laughable. It's laughable. They may have brought enforcement actions, but again, are you going to go to Florida and tell your constituents, don't worry about a thing, we got Dubai on the case? That'll make them angry, I think. The second thing I do want to make clear is, well, 2 points. You know, this Fed funds rate issue is all, we're not talking about it today, but the subprime meltdown is integrally involved in further deregulated instruments, credit default swaps, which prior to this passage of this 2000 Act would have had to be regulated. There would have been capital reserves. People would have been looking over people's shoulders. Those toxic instruments are now being taken that nobody else will buy by the United States Federal Reserve in exchange for U.S. Treasuries. And when you say about the weakening in the U.S. economy, the United States, you and I are holding those instruments as collateral for Treasuries that are being given to banks. And the Fed funds rate is really a mirage. People are pulling their hair out. True indication of what interest rates are is the London Interbank daily rate, which is basis points, historically basis points higher than the Fed funds. Why is that? Because nobody believes that they want to lend to these banks because they are not, you know, Bear Stearns collapsed. Lehman Brothers is going out asking for another $300 million. So I'm saying to you is your job is not just with this energy stuff. The farm crisis points back to this, the housing crisis, and if we're going to put our economy in order, yes, we should balance the budget, but we can't let this gambling casino continue and see the Bear Stearnses of this world and other banks who are teetering on the brink and need the help of the Fed at the discount window and raises serious problems. That's why our economic situation is held in ill repute and why the dollar is sinking, in my view.
We had a little victory a week and a half ago in the Farm on creating more oversight in the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. I take it you don't think that's going to do much for the price of oil?
Yeah, because the CFTC has said it does not affect West Texas Intermediate contracts because those, even though they're sold in the United States by United States-owned or affiliated entities, they're controlled by London and Dubai, and you cannot use the Farm Bill amendment to regulate those products. And I've earlier said, Senator Nelson, I'd be happy to talk to you further. You can read my testimony. The Farm Bill puts the burden on the public to prove that there's regulation. The public can't afford to go through lengthy administrative proceedings on a contract-by-contract basis. The old rule before Senator Graham got his CFMA through was that the traders had to prove they should be deregulated, not that the public had to prove there should be regulation. The CFTC has said that Farm Bill amendment will affect 1 out of thousands of energy contracts.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Greenberg, I want to be clear because there's something that some people might find confusing, and that is on U.S. products. We obviously believe that if you're selling U.S. products, they ought to be regulated in the United States. And when you are, as the United States wants to do, to sell in some other country, we can do that, but then we are under the regulations of those markets. Is that correct?
Well, it is correct, but it's a little more complicated than that, and quite frankly, that led to the whole Foreign Board of Trade issue. Some countries said, if you lightly regulate our exchanges coming into your country, we'll lightly regulate yours. But the fact of the matter is, that is going all in one direction. All the liquidity is in the United States. It is very important that we not just let these Dubai exchanges that have partnered with our own exchanges, or ICE, which is in Atlanta, Intercontinental Exchange, be treated by the United Kingdom. They're robbing us blind. There are no spec limits. There are no position limits. There's no large data trade hoarding. That could be stopped this afternoon. In other words, the comedy we tried to create and the fairness has been, in the last 7 years, just made into a joke, and we've literally gotten undressed in the front of the rest of the world and let them do what they will with our gas-paying, oil-paying economy. The final point I want to make, Senator Cantwell, and I don't want the sun to rest before I say this, I agree completely with Mr. Soros, and I don't want to be misunderstood. There are serious supply-demand problems here. Environment causes, our need to control the environment causes some of it. What I am saying is there's an unnecessary premium. And when I say things would be easy, I think we could knock that premium out overnight if people were of good faith and brought all this under the kind of regulation that this country saw for 78 years, from 1922 to 2000, control speculation. We've abandoned that completely.
Thank you. I actually have a question for Ms. Watson, and that is, obviously, part of the concern that's been discussed here today is how the futures market impacts the physical supply, and that was an issue, as we saw, with both Enron and Amrenth as it relates to both electricity and natural gas markets. When we gave FERC this new authority to stop manipulation, you were able to waive the required 30-day notice and implement the rule immediately. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so you were able to do that, I think, because...
We were able to show that we had good cause. At the time, it was it just followed. It was in early 2006, and the Katrina, of course, the hurricanes that hit in 2005. We were concerned about what might be happening still as a result on prices, and also it was in the middle of the winter of 2006, so we asked to waive the 30-day time period so that we could implement the anti-manipulation regulations immediately.
So, in effect, the FTC should be able to do the same thing. I mean, I would assume that they have even more history and knowledge, given what you've been able to accomplish in the electricity and natural gas markets.
I can't speak for the FTC. I can only tell you what we did.
Mr. Greenberger, would you say the FTC has a clear mandate to implement and perhaps even to good cause to implement an interim anti-manipulation rule, given that it's such an urgent situation on prices?
Absolutely, and for several reasons. One, they're being asked to do in the crude oil markets what FERC did in the natural gas markets. FERC has already set up the template. They put out this crazy advance notice of public rulemaking that makes, and the American Petroleum Institute came out and said, gee, you only gave us 30 days notice. Covington and Burling came in and said, we need 90 days to answer these questions, not 30 days. If Covington and Burling could answer those questions overnight, if it was in their economic interest, I'll that. But this procedure that the FTC is set upon means there's not going to be a rule to the early fall. They have the FERC template. All the questions they've asked have been answered by FERC. They don't need this fancy-dancy academic exercise. And number two, is there good cause the FERC representative talks about Katrina and what was happening in 2006. Senator Nelson, what's happening in 2000?